Hello and welcome to the dungeon. Damon here. Today, well, it's a Dayman, but two of us in it. Alright. So, today we're going to be discussing a very important topic. That being our elements. How is it that we can determine the chance for our elements to be triggered? Not only that, but what do our elements actually do and the best practices for utilizing them? And we're also going to be talking about how to activate those elements with all your weapon types. I'll drop you into the pouch and let you guys look at the first person as I get us equipped. Alrighty. So, here I'll be loading up some of my favorite elemental weapons. Where are you? Fire, explosions, We also have a bit of nuance to discuss involving some specific weapon models. Things that you might not have known, or if you did know, might not know exactly how they worked together. We will also be clarifying the explosions and area damage debate, which has been a very vexing one. And to preface that, there is a bug involving area damage that was present during my testing, so look forward to some clarification on that, and by the next update, that should be fixed. Alright. Let's talk about it. So, it's often believed that ice is the most powerful element. And why is it that we think of ice as the most powerful element? That is because once ice triggers, it has the chance to it allows you to destroy that target with the follow-up strike. The frozen period is about 10 seconds before they thaw. It is important to note that ice does not work against your boss-type enemies. However, all other mobs will be iced over. Now, the reason that ice is often cited as the strongest element is because of the ice staff having the most consistent ability to freeze enemies. However, the chance to have elements to trigger is based off your weapon's tier. So remember that, and once we discuss other elements, we'll talk about that percentage to activate. Alrighty, so Ice Shield is the one that I prefer to use for my ice weapons, not what I really prefer on my side weapons due to the fact of the consistency. So, yes, ice, or all elements for that matter, can be triggered against a shield bash, whereas something like Absorb as a weapon perk on the shield relies on an enemy making contact with you. So, even shields can provide the elemental feature. I recommend the ice because it turns the shield into a more adequate weapon than even the mythical variant, which does what appears to be the minimal damage threshold of its weapon type. So, shields otherwise deal 1 damage, with the exception of the charge period of the mythical shield. 1 damage, meaning that the fire is less than ideal and poison can be used as a spacing tool. So let's talk about those other elements, shall we? Here, we have a fire spear, if I can get it to show you how pretty it is. The fire spear is my favorite model, and especially favorite element on a spear, because it allows you to access the weapon's highest damage potential. So, why is it that the fire is so good? Because it deals 100% more damage within a radius, granting a ×2 damage to your weapon's damage. Meaning that this is your best damaging weapon. Not only that, it causes a radial damage against the target, affecting more than a single enemy, which is, again, why you might put it on a shield for additional knockback. It doesn't add to your weapon's knockback, but can knock back enemies surrounding the knockback target. But that ×2 damage on a 1 damage weapon ain't it, is it? So, this This is what we would look at typically as an ice dagger. But why do I bring it out when we are talking about the poison element? That is because the dagger is the only weapon that is capable of having two elements present on it. That being that the element of a weapon is randomized but is viewable in the fabricator, but that is not true for the shield. You will not see your shield's element in the fabricator until it is made. However, most weapon models will tell you its element type, but the dagger is the only weapon perk that says poison, so it can have access to a poison weapon perk that can stack with the poison weapon element, only for its chance to trigger, not its damage. We'll discuss how the triggering effects take place next. So, despite this being an ice elemental dagger, it deals poison damage as well. And the reason we're talking about this now is because the poison is a great element for keeling over an enemy. And you've all seen that element is capable of freezing an enemy in place, keeling them over at the hip, and we've often wondered, is there damage taking place? And yes, there is. There is damage taking place during that poisoning period. However, that will be interrupted if we strike them out of their damaging period. So if you or someone else in the dungeon activates that poisoning effect, be a smart dungeoneer and leave them be. Not only will they not be moving or attacking, but we can be taking down their health pool during that period. Mind you, the damage is very minimal, but any damage that is on an enemy you don't have to worry about is worth your time. So, I talked about the unique weapon perk. That is not the elemental perk, but the unique weapon perk of the dagger. Now, I did preface by stating that a poison dagger with a weapon perk poison can double down on its chance to activate, but it will not deal additional poison damage. So, when we're talking about how these weapons are how these perks are activated, they are based off of a percentage chance, and that percentage chance is pertaining to the loot tier of your weapons. So once you unlock loot tier 7, your elements can be triggered at 32% of the time. Okay, so 32% of the time. Unlike most weapon perks that are weapon chances are about 30, most chances cap out around 32, very similar to critical hits. Now, the way in which these things trigger is they trigger all at once, but they are rolled separately. So fire will be rolled, criticals will be rolled, as well as being rolled on the exosuit as well. And that will double the chance to trigger your criticals and double the damage. Well, it's actually a ×9 damage if both criticals trigger. So, baby. Now, when it comes to those weapon perks, there are what are called always on weapon perks like attack power, and then there are rolled chance weapons perks like criticals or slowing. Now, I mentioned at the start of the video that there is a bug right now involving area damage. It was unfortunately present while I was testing explosions and area damage. So it may very well be that explosions and area damage can be triggered in both ranges, both being melee and thrown. But right now, area damage does not appear to be triggering appropriately at any range. There are some testers alongside me who have managed to get it to trigger in very specific circumstances, but until we can confirm those, I will not make any further speculation. However, area damage is bugged, but very similar to explosions. It is the times to 100% damage increase. So, and then that will be based off of its chance to trigger at the highest tier of your weapon fabrication loot at 7 being 32%. Now, fix my hat here. Now that we've talked about that, it's also important to list a very important nuance involving the slowing effect slowing effect as it pertains to the other weapons. Slowing takes priority. Unfortunately, you cannot see from this perspective of the live. This is a slowing and area damage as well as fire element. Slowing takes priority due to the state change of its target. So, if slowing is triggered, it will take priority over area damage. Okay, this is not as relevant in terms of crossbows or arrows, as they can only have one element on a bolt, or arrow at a time. However, when it comes to the hammer and cudgels specifically that gain the slowing effect on their weapons, the area damage present will be overshadowed by the slowing effect. So that is a priority effect. This is also true for our poison weapon perk. Poison weapon perk is another priority. So if it will take place over something like vampire. If you have a vampire dagger with which has a chance to trigger, it will also and if poison weapon perk triggers first, then the vampire will not trigger. But again, always on perks such as attack power will not be affected by this effect. Now, there are those are very important notes on our elements. Remember, ice does not affect bosses, but does in fact have a hidden feature. And if you've been watching this far, check this out. If your weapon strikes against a critter type enemy with 1 HP and you ice it over, okay, that icing damage, the weapon's damage will still carry over once the thawed period is completed. So if your weapon damage was enough to in fact have slain that critter type enemy, then it will still perish after it thaws. But that is not true for creatures that have higher health pools that the singular damage did not exceed, allowing for that follow-up attack to take place. Now, fire affects practically all enemy types, including bosses. Of course, these don't affect their pertaining elemental type enemies. Poison does, now remember this is a poison weapon perk, poison doesn't affect poison type enemies, but it can affect bosses, giving it an edge case for utility, especially when you're in a tough battle against bosses and you need to revive an ally. A poison type element will affect bosses. With these notes in mind, you are prepared to enter a dungeon with the best knowledge involving your elements, as well as understanding some nuance about the game that isn't always apparent to us. This information is confirmed by developers, which I'm very happy to have given you. Before the developers managed to confirm this information to me, I was doing my own research. What I was doing was I was taking crossbows, and I would take that crossbow with a singular element as its only perk, and fire 100 shots, mark down how many times it triggered, do it 100 more times. I do it about 500, which is just a pretty small test group, but it still took a long time. And then I would take elements with weapon perks that had chances to trigger, like slowing. And I found, and this is where I started to find an issue with the slowing constantly taking priority. So I was doing a lot of research and was thankfully able to reach out to a developer through the Discord. If you are not on the Discord, I recommend getting on it, because that Discord has very active developers who work on this game and will talk to you. Do not at them. Respect their space. They are working on a lot for us right now. But you can also find me, as well as various other content creators like Obi-Wan Pierogi, JJ Bunda, as well as Silver Tongue, and many others. So, check out Lord Death as well. And with that, you have learned how to be an elemental master. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the dungeons and seeing you in that Discord. Remember to wash your face and disinfect your face mask, baby. Peace.